Our last game this episode is Spartan X, known as Kung Fu in the United States. This is a port of Irem's 1984 arcade game, which was known as Kung Fu Master in the US. Note the Paragon Films Limited copyright notice on the arcade version. One thing that's interesting about this is it appears to be based on the Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, Yuen Biao film called Wheels on Meals. In Japan, this was released in theaters as Spartan X. If we examine the arcade game's title screen, we see it uses the exact same logo as the film. However, here the similarities end. Wheels on Meals takes place in Barcelona and features a European-style castle. The video game features a Chinese environment. More than anything else, this game resembles the pagoda scene from Bruce Lee's Game of Death. In that film, Bruce Lee fights his way to the top of a pagoda, one story at a time. Each story has a different martial arts master. That's basically the plot of this game. Now what has occurred here is that you play someone named Thomas, and your girlfriend Sylvia has been kidnapped by the mysterious Mr. X. She's being held at the top of the tower, and your job is to fight your way up to the top. Now the names Thomas and Sylvia are from the movie Wheels on Meals. However, there is no Mr. X in that film. I assume what actually happened here is that Irem was already working on the game when the offer came in to tie it into Spartan X. They made a few superficial changes, like the character's name, and then released the game as is. Doesn't really seem likely, however, this game was actually inspired by the movie. Now when this game came out in arcades, back in 1984, it seemed quite revolutionary. It actually seemed a lot different than other games that were available at that time. First of all, it seemed to have some sort of overall plot. This game presented you with a clearly defined goal, rescuing Sylvia, but unlike single-screen games like Donkey Kong, you didn't really know what was coming up ahead. You had a general idea that you had to get to the top of the 5 stories of the pagoda, but you really did not know what would be on those upper stories until you got to them. This helped create sort of a dramatic tension to the game. You knew you had an ultimate goal, but you had no idea what was in store for you. When you first came across the various sub-bosses at the end of each floor, they were quite a surprise. Now Spartan X is of course considered to be perhaps the first side-scrolling beat-em-up game, but in a lot of ways it actually looks forward to Super Mario Bros. It's a side-scrolling game with a number of clearly defined levels. At the end of each level, there is sort of a sub-boss that you must defeat before moving on to the next level. Once you reach the final level, you battle the main boss, rescue the girl, and then it begins again. We're seeing Mr. X right here. Unfortunately, he's not a very imposing character, sort of a regular-looking guy with a goofy redneck haircut. This game has a couple little graphical indicators to sort of let you know what your progress is. Near the player life bar, you see a number of boxes which tell you which floor you're currently on. Also, a little dragon head lets you know how many times you've actually completed the entire game. The Famicom version remains pretty true to the arcade original. Graphics aren't quite as good, but it's close enough to certainly be a lot of fun to play. This game is, of course, very simple as compared to later beat-em-ups, and it is sort of repetitive, but at the time it came out originally in arcades, it was an immensely impressive game.